You had one of the most interesting answers to the question that is the namesake of this show, which is what is money? And your answer to that question
was money is a measure of fucks given.
Measure of fucks given. Can you please, I know we talked about this last time, but I think it's worth unpacking it one more time.
It's if you think back to the origins of humanity, you have these sort of hominid tribes, and everybody has to contribute in some way, and you're going to keep track of that. You're going to keep track of it mentally. You don't. And so what you've really got is this sort of mental spreadsheet that human beings have of the value that others have contributed. Mm-hmm. And you can get up to what we call Dunbar's number. Mm-hmm. You're probably familiar, but for the audience, Dunbar's number is this theoretical number of human beings that you can sustain a mental model of.
Yeah.
It's supposedly around 150. We don't know. But what's important is that there is a number.
Yeah.
And
beyond that number, groups tend to fragment, right? We kind of fork into different tribes.
Either they fragment or you need ways to formalize your relationship with them so that you don't have to think about it as much. You're limited in your mental resources. Right. So as we we had the agricultural revolution, we settled down, okay, there's some things that we own now, and we can use these as trade goods to keep track of, who has contributed value. We can measure it in metal or in grain or whatever. But ultimately, what we are actually measuring is you did something that I give a fuck about. Mm-hmm. So I am going to do something that you give a fuck about. Mm-hmm. And if I were to somehow be able to create a society, the currency would be the fuck, because it's that's what measures whether people give a fuck or not. It's about what people care about.
Yeah. So this ethereal spreadsheet in the sky that's tracking the favors people have rendered to one another and are then in turn owed from one another, right? Like I brought down the woolly mammoth and fed all 40 of you. The 40 of you owe me something in the future for that.
Then when I trip over a rock and break my foot, the tribe is going to take care of me.
Right.
Because I have done something that they give a fuck about.
Yes.
And currency is basically a way of formalizing that relationship.
Right.
So that we can track it when there are so many human beings that we can't sustain a mental model of it.
Right.
And I find it very pleasing and amusing that the latest technological development in money goes back to it being a spreadsheet. I love that.
Yeah. So it really, just a mechanism for trading favors, but it's one that allows us to offload the cognitive burden, right? That we don't need to remember who did what for who within our little 150 person circle. We can actually offload that to a mathematical system, basically a spreadsheet, I guess, would be a mathematical framework of sorts.
And this allows us to increase the size of our circle past 150. And what that allows us to do is work on projects that require more than 150 people.
Right.
Like launching rockets into space.
Yes.
In some way, this enables civilization.
Yes. Yeah, and over much longer periods of time too, right? Because you can track, obviously, there's intergenerational wealth, right? Families that have created a lot of solutions to a lot of problems over a long period of time through their business enterprises. You can track that mathematically. So we get this, it becomes linguistic too, because we now get the language of numeracy to discuss we go from the domain of the qualitative, like what people have actually done for us, but it's translated into the domain of the quantitative. So you can see, the hierarchies of wealth, right? What is the net worth? What is the enterprise value of the business, et cetera, et cetera. So what is what are we doing here? The loaded term is the fuck, right? It's like,
yes,
what I give a fuck about. What does that mean? It's like what I care about, basically. But it's being communicated in a way that's universally standardized, right? That's what mathematics is. So what is the linguistic? There's something linguistic here. Like I'm trying to, this is something we wrestle with on the show a lot. It's like one of the definitions of money, the language of value or the language of human action. So what is the linguistic quality of money? What is it doing for us from like a communication standpoint?
Well, when I hear what you're saying here, I almost want to go back to Thomas Sowell.
Mm-hmm.
And when he talks in his book, Basic Economics, he says that economics is the study of choice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the study of the allocation of scarce resources that have alternative uses.
Right.
So when we talk about somebody having done something that we give a fuck about, and that being the basis of currency, what this helps us do is it helps us choose how we're going to use our efforts and direct our resources, because the monetary value of something essentially measures what a lot of people give a lot of fucks about.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's like if something has a high fuck value,
mm-hmm.
what this really means is that we're this big group of hominids and a large number of people care intensely about
mm-hmm.
this. So maybe this is where we direct some significant amount of effort.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if something has less fucks given, then maybe it means that a lot of people care about it less intensely,
mm-hmm.
or maybe it means that a smaller amount of people care about it intensely.
Mm.
So, as apes with tools, there's so many things that we can spend our day doing.
Mm-hmm.
We can spend our day writing. We can spend our day brewing coffee and serving it to other people. We can spend our day running a nuclear reactor. And we have to decide what is the most valuable thing that I can do. And this currency is a language through which other humans can speak to us and tell us what they care about.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, that's wonderful. The language of economists comes to mind, where they would say that the pricing system is that through which consumers reveal their preferences. So you're actually telling people what you want, right? When you, for instance, buy a car, well, then you've taken a car off of the market, so you've reduced the supply, and therefore you put upward pressure on the price of that car, which is signaling to all the producers of cars in the world, well, people give a fuck about transportation, I guess in this case.
Yeah.
Let's produce more of those. And the opposite is obviously true as well. When you sell something, it's putting downward pressure, and then producers are producing less. So language, like we connect to each other. We're doing it right now. Obviously, we almost are connecting the interior space of our minds to one another, but that's not enough to reveal preferences in a way that's trustworthy. But when you do it with money, there's more of like this human energy component, right? So we have these phrases in our language like talk is cheap, for instance. Could we say that money is something like an energy language? Like it's telling us what we have done or what we should be doing based on the preferences of other people, something like that?
Yeah, well, with what you're getting at here, I think the way I would put it is that it sort of elides the process of lying to others and the process of lying to ourselves.
Mm.
When we say talk is cheap, it it's literally true. It's free to say something.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very low effort. So we can express preferences that are performative. Like, I don't actually want to spend my day going to the Guggenheim and appreciating great art, because maybe I actually find that boring and I would much rather watch science fiction movies. But I want people to think of me as a sophisticated person, so I'm going to lie about my preferences either to them or to myself. But because currency requires effort, I'm going to direct my efforts towards the things that I actually care about. So if other people, if money becomes a language of fucks given, then other people can look at my economic activity. They can look at how I spend my money, and they can discern my real preferences. And so we can cut through this whole practice of deception and self-deception and social politics and look at our actual priorities, both as an individual and as a group of people living and working together. And we can direct our efforts in ways that are actually relevant to what we care about, rather than just this sort of spin-off result of how we're trying to present ourselves.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money, and be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.